Without further ado, let's give a round of applause to Sachin.
Hey everyone, good morning. So just like all of you, I'm not a morning person at all. So I'm going to be kind of walking around trying to keep myself awake. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to interrupt me at any time, raise your hand. I want to make this as interactive as possible. If you can't hear me, please shout or say something. My story, as Emily mentioned, is a little bit interesting, and I'll get into it in a second. First, I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. I wanted to thank FindSpark and LIM College for hosting this. I think this is a great event, and I think it's awesome that you guys all made it here on a Saturday morning to first of all hear me speak, but also all the other great speakers that are here. So very much appreciated. First thing I wanted to start off with is just a little word of advice that when I first heard about this program, they asked for one line that you would tell people, and of course one line never works because that's the way the world works, right? So I put together one line that had 4 bullets. So I'll start this way. Always be learning, hustle harder than your peers, and never underestimate the power of politics or humility. These 4 things, you'll see a recurring theme throughout my story, is that it's very, very important to kind of stay grounded in these four overall arching rules. So the first thing I did was, after getting out of college, actually, you know what, before I even get in there, can you guys just show me raise your hands, how many are still in college right now? Wow, and how many are out of college and in a job? Okay, so everyone here is trying to get a job, it looks like. Are most of you seniors and graduating this year? Yeah, okay, cool. So when I graduated college, I at first had no idea what I wanted to do. And I didn't even know where to start because I am a little bit older than you guys, and I graduated in the heart of the recession. So in 2007, the entire economy tanked, and I didn't know what to do. One of my friends actually had an interview at Macy's, and after going through the whole process, she actually got 2 offers, one from there and one from another company. She decided to take the other company, so I called Macy's and I said, hey, you just offered my friend a job. I have a similar resume, can I send you mine and see what happens? And they said, yeah, sure, why not? I applied, I got the job within a week. And that doesn't happen when people are getting laid off at a clip of 800,000 jobs a month, right? So I was very fortunate, very lucky. There's always a little bit of luck involved when you're trying to get out there and hustle. But the most important thing for me was I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And at the time, I didn't know what merchandise planning was. So when I got hired to be an assistant merchandise planner, I had to kind of hit the ground running and just learn on the job. This is a little bit harder, easier said than done. When you're 22, 23 years old, you're in a huge company with thousands of employees. They really don't care about you who just got there, right? Because they didn't put their business on hold. Everything is still running at the speed that it was right before you got there. So for me, I had to quickly understand the rules of the land, right? So there are a couple of benefits and cons to working at a big company like this. For me, I like to be independent, innovative, autonomous, and really take control of what I'm working on. Unfortunately, at a big company, that's not the experience that I had, but what I will say, they gave me the best training I could possibly imagine for the role that I ended up still in, 10 years later, right? So the one thing I can say about Macy's is they set me up for a very, very successful career in fashion and in retail. So if any of you are kind of nervous about like, how do I get into this and where do I learn all these different tricks and tactics? Well, first of all, luckily LIM College offers a great curriculum in fashion business, but Macy's gives you real numbers, real departments. You're working with physical products that you get to touch, brands that you know about. Steve Madden, Jessica Simpson. I had meetings with them every other week. And that was me being 22 years old, and I had no idea. I met Steve Madden, and I was like, oh, you're like the Steve. You're not like just some guy named Steve. That's crazy. So, when you're that young, you don't expect to be involved in decisions or meetings or things like that. You're just like, I'm here for the ride. Like, I'll go wherever, but, it's nice to meet you. The cons, I have to say, were what I mentioned earlier about the slow-moving kind of red tape, hierarchical structure. It's very hard to kind of break out of that in that environment. But what I can say also is you have to find leaders in those positions or in that company to mentor you, right? Because you're not going to get where you want to go without somebody who's already been there telling you how to do it better, right? So I had the good fortune of getting a promotion and having my manager be, this is what he said to me. The first thing he says to me goes, my #1 priority is your development. And I was blown away because no one has ever said that to me before. And he was like, this is a little selfish. The reason I'm saying that is because the better you are, the less I have to do for you, and the more productive we can be as a team. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I literally shadowed him for 6 months. I learned more from him than I learned from anybody else since I've been working. And that's a lot to say about somebody, right? And that feeling is what I also espouse and I try to bring out and pay it forward, right? Because why else would I be here? I'm trying to impart my story and my wisdom on to people who also need that advice, right? So I think finding somebody like that is awesome. I was, again, very lucky and good fortune. I had good fortune. After he left, though, I got stuck with a manager that wasn't so great. And at the same time, my friend at work, she was like, oh, why don't you apply to Guild? And I was like, what's Guild? And so I went to the website and it looked really cool. And when I applied and I got the interview, I still had no idea what they did. So when I walked in, I had to do research the night before. And wait, hold on, no one's telling anybody about this, right? So when I walked in there, I got this huge hit of energy. And I don't know if you want to call it intuition or whatever, but I felt like this is where I belong. You get that rush, that emotion, that it's hard to explain. Like working in a cubicle at Macy's and walking into this glass doors and all these people hustling back and forth with their laptops and talking business strategy, and you're just like, whoa, this is so mind-blowing. Because before you're sitting in a conference room with old white people talking about the same thing every day. And I hate to say it like that, but as a minority in fashion and business, and as you can all see too, it's not the easiest thing to break in, right? There are a lot of barriers for people of color and also gender, right? Women can easily disrupt this industry so well, but it's about the opportunity, right? When I was at Macy's and I was working in women's footwear, and there's men leading the team, and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. We should have a female perspective on this as well. So I think having different perspectives, having a diverse workforce, these are all things that really benefit a corporation. When I was at Guild, they really espoused this. They brought together people from all walks of life. And I got in there just randomly by applying because they needed a merchandise planner, but 60% of the people that got jobs there were through referrals. So when you're looking for jobs in these really great companies that are mobilizing and growing at really fast clips, they hire trusted workers, right? And who do they trust? The friends and coworkers of the people that are already there, right? If you've already been vetted and you have great experience, they're going to assume that your friends also are vetted and have good experience, right? You don't hang out with people who are jobless and on the street, right? You're hanging out with people who are like-minded, ambitious, trying to work hard and get ahead. So that was great experience for me, but one thing I actually forgot to mention is when I was interviewing with them, body language, what you wear and what you say go a long way. When I walked in there, I was wearing a suit, and everyone else in there is in jeans and a t-shirt. So, you have to kind of fit the mold wherever you're trying to interview, right? So it was great for if I was interviewing at Macy's, because they were all very stodgy, suited up people. But when I went to Guild, I actually had the interviewer kind of look me up and down and be like, you are way too serious. And I was like, no, I swear I'm not. Just get to know me for 2 minutes. And she had basically written me off. She even told me after, she's like, I wasn't trying to hire you. And I'm like, well, what changed your mind? She got to the bottom of my resume. And that's where I listed out my activities, my passions, and things that I like to do outside of work. And it said that I was a dancer. And she was like, stop. She's like, you dance? I was like, yeah. What kind of dance? For 10 minutes we talked about dance. And I was like, well, I was trained in jazz, hip hop, tap, salsa, a couple of Indian styles. And she's like, wait, back up. She's like, where do you dance? And I was like, well, I've danced Latin Grammys and a couple other things. wait, what? And so the more she got to know me and to know that like I'm not just this one, trick pony, she was like, oh my God, I had no idea. And then she's like, why are you wearing a suit? So after all said and done, she realized that I did have a personality, but it was just hidden behind this weird, suit that I thought I had to wear. But honestly, like, you need to show your personality when you're out at these interviews. People want to know who you are. Like, what drives you to your core? What are you passionate about, right? Because if you're just there to get a paycheck, no one wants to hear that. No one wants to be like, oh yeah, I walked in at 9, walked out at 5, I'm going to go to happy hour, watch TV, and go to sleep, right? Like that. No one wants to hear that. What they want to hear is, I'm here to kill it. I want to work hard. I want to work fast. I want to make moves. I want to be innovative. I want my ideas to be heard. These are the kind of people that companies like Guilt attract. These are the kind of people that they promote. I had the good fortune again of being promoted within 3 years of being at Guilt, and they put me in a position of planning for the entire international business. This was mind-boggling to me because before I was like in one area, just women's footwear, apparel, things like that. Now I'm every family of business, men's, women's, kids, home, across 200 countries. The complexity of that was just something I had to get used to. I had to learn. What works in China and Korea does not work in Canada and Australia, right? Everything is different. I actually did my master's program at NYU Stern while I was working. So for 4 years, I went part-time after work, spent 10 hours extra a week taking classes, doing homework. I was like, I thought I was done with homework. I graduated college years ago. And I'm sitting there writing papers till 3 in the morning, then going to work again at 9 till 6, then class till 9 p.m., and then working again. And it was just one of those things where you don't, at the time, realize that, does this make sense? Am I doing this for any real purpose? At the end of it totally makes sense. After you take that hurdle, you take that, you jump off the cliff a little bit, there is a safety net there that you just have to trust that you'll find. And I luckily was able to, have great people that drove me into these decisions. While I was there, I got to take some really cool classes too. So one of the things about learning is you have to broaden your mind, right? You can't just be learning the same thing over and over. You're in fashion college, great, but what's going on in the world? What's going on in the macroeconomic factors, right? How's everything else impacting your decisions? I took classes like evolutionary psychology and business. I took classes like consumer neuroscience because I wanted to understand, like, what is that impact we have on someone's mind or brain, and does that really impact them to shop differently or behave differently? And the answer is yes. There are tactics that you learn in merchandising and in sales that really drive people's psychology to shop. So these are the kind of things you have to really listen to, right? Another thing that I mentioned before was that you should never underestimate the power of politics or humility. The reason I say that is because as much as we hate politics, if anyone saw that GOP debate on Thursday where they're talking about the most ridiculous things, you have to be a politician at work, right? Because you can't just go around defending people. Not everyone is as rich as Donald Trump, right? You can't just call people names. So when you are in a company, you have to really show that level of respect. You have to help people that are junior to you. When I was at Guild, I actually started a class, open to buy training, for 40 of the assistant buyers. That I didn't have to do that, but I knew that if they were better prepared to learn what they need to do, I can work faster with them, better with them, more productive with them. They'll move higher up in their career, and I'll get to continue to have a great network. So these are the kind of things you have to kind of do from a political standpoint. You have to have allies. People have to have your back. So when you want to project an idea, right? If you're in a company, you want to pitch an idea. If you don't have any backing, no one's going to support you. You're not going to get it passed. You'll feel frustrated. At the end of the full circle, you end up coming down on yourself. But if you're able to have backing, get a CEO behind you or a VP or even your own boss, these are big things that help nudge ideas along. And once you get that support, it's a lot easier to do that. So that brought me down to my journey here at Mack Weldon. And this job actually also kind of happened a little bit serendipitously for me. I have a really big network on LinkedIn. And the CEO reached out to me and was like, hey, we're looking for someone to head up our planning. Would you be interested? So I said, yeah, sure. I just put out. Hey, Emily, I think Can you guys hear me if I just speak loudly? Yeah? So one of the things I also encourage everyone to do is to network really hard. I, just in this week alone, went to a Stern alumni networking event. I went to an app contest event to meet new people, and I'm working full time still. So one of the biggest things that I've done in my career is constantly meet people. When I mentioned earlier that Guild hires 60% of their employees through referrals, that's part of the network you have to build. I have, I think, around 1,700 connections on LinkedIn. I don't even know half of them probably, but they've come into my life some way, somehow. Maybe got a business card, an email, or something, and we were able to connect. And now I have people emailing me all the time, like, hey, do you know somebody who works here? Can you put me in touch? And I'm always willing to help. One of my friends actually from Macy's, she's looking for a new job, and I've introduced her to 5 different founders at different companies that she wants to work at. And that's, the kind of power that you can build with a network. And I hope that she will return the favor one day if she gets up there, but that's how it works, right? You have to pay everything forward. If someone does something for you, you do something for somebody else. The one thing, though, I really want to kind of end with here is, and I mentioned it earlier, is you have to hustle harder than your peers. Look at this room right now. There's like 100 plus people in here who are smart, ambitious, and ready to go, like today, yesterday. And this is awesome, but this also exists all over the country, right? You're not the only one sitting here trying to get into fashion or get a job. You have to work so much harder than everybody else. When I was working at Guild, I didn't tell people what I would do at home, but I would take my laptop, thank you. I would take my laptop home every night and work between 11 and 2 a.m. and not tell anybody. For weeks, I would do this. And by the end of it, I would come up with these crazy reports and these files, and I would show my boss, and she'd be like, when did you do this? And I was like, oh, don't worry about it. Like, it's cool. Because the thing is, you don't want to let on how hard you're working, right? You want people to think that you're just able to get these things done magically. But there's no such thing as magic. When you see Steph Curry, the best basketball player in the world, he's practicing more than any other player out there. Like, that's when Kobe Bryant was the best player in the world. His work regimen was ridiculous, and this work ethic. People don't realize, even actors like Will Smith, I don't know if you've ever seen him speak, but he has this idea that you can't let fear get in the way of what you want to accomplish, and you have to push through with that spirit of a hustler. Like, you have to go above and beyond every single day, and that's the only way to kind of be noticed, to break the mold, to shine through. Otherwise, you're going to be an average employee, and I hate to say it that way, but it's okay to be an average employee if you want that. But if you want to be ambitious and you want to get ahead and you want to climb up that ladder, you need to out-hustle every single person next to you. And that's just the way it is. So I want to give some time for questions, if you guys have, and if anyone's too shy and wants to talk later, I'm going to hang out for an extra 20 minutes out here. I'm happy to give any advice that you guys need. Feel free to tweet at me. My email address is sachin@macweldon.com in case you guys want to email me instead. But happy to talk, and thank you again for all your time. And thank you again to Emily and everybody else. Appreciate it.